Welcome, everybody, to our polished reading of Ghosts by Henrik Ibsen. My camera's not on right now, just for the sake of making the recording a little bit easier, but we're excited to share this piece with you. I have some incredible actors here with me today that are going to be assisting in the read, and I'm excited to hand things over to them, but we'll just introduce them to you guys one at a time, just so you guys can get to know them a little bit. Let's start with George at the top there.
Sure. Yeah. My name is George Kiriakopulos, and I am a York University Devised Theater graduate, as well as a Second City Conservatory graduate, and I'm playing Jacob Engstrand.
Thank you, George. Jill?
Hi, everyone. My name's Jillian Robinson. I'm a graduate of the Theatre and Drama Studies Joint Program with the University of Toronto and Sheridan College. And tonight I'll be reading for Mrs. Alving.
Great. Thank you, Jill. Raechel?
Hi, my name is Raechel Fisher, and I'm a graduate of the York University Acting Conservatory. And I will be reading the part of Regina Engstrand.
Thank you very much, Raechel. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex Osborne. I'm a graduate of Theatre Studies at York University, graduate of the Improv Conservatory at Second City, and current MFA student at East 15 in the UK.
Thank you, Alex. And finally, Edmund.
Hey everyone, my name is Edmund Clark. I'm a York U grad in the theater program there, and I'm a student at the Toronto Theatre Academy. I'm also the co-founder of Cup of Hemlock. So
Excellent.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
A spacious garden room, with one door to the left and two doors to the right. In the middle of the room, a round table with chairs about it. On the table lie books, periodicals, and newspapers. In the foreground to the left, a window, and by it a small sofa with a work table in front of it. In the background, the room is continued into a somewhat narrower conservatory, the walls of which are formed by large panes of glass. On the right-hand wall of the conservatory is a door leading down into the garden. Through the glass wall, a gloomy fjord landscape is faintly visible, veiled by steady rain. Engstrand, the carpenter, stands by the garden door. His left leg is somewhat bent. He has a clump of wood under the sole of his boot. Regina, with an empty garden syringe in her hand, hinders him from advancing.
What do you want? Stop where you are. You're positively dripping.
It's the Lord's own rain, my girl.
Oh, it's the devil's rain, I say.
Lord, how you talk, Regina. What I wanted to say is...
Oh, don't clatter so with that foot of yours. I tell you, the master's asleep upstairs.
Asleep? In the middle of the day?
It's no business of yours.
I was out drinking last night.
I can quite believe that.
Yes, we're weak vessels, we poor mortals, my girl.
So it seems.
And temptations are manifold in this world, you see. But all the same, I was hard at work. God knows, at 5:30 in the morning.
Very well. Only be off now. I won't stop here and have a rendezvous with you.
What do you say you won't have?
I won't have anyone find you here, so just go about your business.
I won't go before I've had a talk with you. This afternoon, I shall have finished my work at the schoolhouse, and then I shall take tonight's steamer and be off home to the town.
Bon voyage.
Thank you, my child. Tomorrow the orphanage is to be opened, and then there will be a celebration, no doubt, and plenty of intoxicating drinks. Nobody shall say of Jacob Engstrand that he can't keep himself out of temptation's way.
Oh?
You see, there's to be heaps of grand folks here tomorrow. Pastor Manders is expected from town, too.
He's coming today.
There, you see. And I should be cursedly sorry if he found out anything against me, don't you understand?
Oh, so is that your game?
Is what my game?
What are you going to fool Pastor Manders into doing this time?
Hush. Are you mad? Do I want to fool Pastor Manders? Oh, no. Pastor Manders has been far too good a friend to me for that. But I just wanted to say, you know, that I mean to be home again tonight.
The sooner the better, I say.
Yes, but I want you with me, Regina.
You want me? What are you talking about?
I want you to come home with me.
Never in this world you get me home with you.
Oh, we'll see about that.
Oh, yes, you may be sure we'll see about that. Me, that has since been brought up by a lady like Mrs. Alving, me, that I'm treated almost as a daughter here. Is it me you want to go home with you? To a house like yours? For shame.
What the devil do you mean? Do you set yourself up against your own father?
You've said often enough I was no concern of yours.
Why should you bother about that?
Haven't you many a time sworn at me and called me a... well, you know.
Curse me now if I ever use such an ugly word.
Oh, I remember very well what word you used.
Well, but that was only when I was not myself. Do you understand? Temptations are manifold in this world, Regina. And besides, it was when your mother was that aggravating. I had to find something to vex her with, my child. She was always setting up for a fine lady. Let me go, Engstrand. Let me be. Remember, I was 3 years in Chamberlain Alving's family at Rosenfold. Mercy on us. She could never forget that the captain was made a chamberlain while she was in service here.
Poor mother. You tormented her into the grave.
Oh, of course. I'm to have the blame for everything.
Oh, and that leg, too.
What do you say, my child?
Pied de mouton.
Is that English, eh?
Yes, c'est anglais.
Aye, aye. You picked up some learning out here, and that may come in useful now, Regina.
What do you want with me?
Well, can you ask what a father wants with his only child? Aren't I a lonely, forlorn widower?
Don't try any nonsense like that with me. Why do you want me?
Well, let me tell you. I've been thinking of setting up a new line of business.
Well, you've tried that often enough. Much good have done you.
Yes, but this time you shall see, Regina. Devil take me.
Stop. You're swearing.
Hush, hush. How right you are there, my girl. What I wanted to say was just this. I've laid by a very tidy pile from this orphanage job.
Have you? It's good for you.
What can a man spend his savings on here in this country hole?
Well, what then?
Why, you see, I thought of putting the money into some paying speculation. I thought of a sort of a sailor's tavern.
Oh my God.
A regular high-class affair, of course. Not any sort of pigsty for common sailors. No, damn it. It would be for captains and officers, and regular swells, you know.
And I was too...
You were to help, to be sure.
Hmm.
Only for the look of the thing, you understand. Devil a bit of hard work shall you have, my girl. You shall do exactly what you like.
Oh, indeed.
But there must be a petticoat in the house that's as clear as daylight. For I want to have it a bit lively, like in the evenings, with singing and dancing and so on. You must remember, they're weary wanderers on the ocean life. Now, don't be a fool and stand it in your own light, Regina. What's to become of you out here? Your mistress has given you a lot of learning, but what good is that to you? You're to look after your children at the new orphanage, I hear. Is that the sort of thing for you, eh? Are you so dead set on wearing your life out for a pack of dirty brats?
No. Things go as I want them to. Well, there's no saying. There's no saying.
What do you mean by there's no saying?
Never you mind. How much of this money have you saved?
What would one thing and the other? A matter of 700 or 800 kroner.
That's not so bad.
It's enough to make a start with, my girl.
Are you thinking of giving me any?
No, not damn likely.
Not even enough for a new dress.
Come to town with me and you'll soon get dresses enough.
I can do that on my own account if I want to.
No, a father's guiding hand is what you want, Regina. Now I've got my eye on a splendid house in Little Harbor Street. They don't want much ready-made money, and it could be a sort of a sailor's home, you know.
But I will not live with you. I have nothing whatever to do with you. Be off.
You wouldn't need to stay along with me, my girl. No such luck. If you knew how to play your cards, such a fine figure of a girl as you've grown in the last year or two,
Well,
you'd soon get hold of a mate. Or maybe even a captain.
I won't marry any sort of that. Sailors have no savoir-vivre.
What's that they haven't got?
I know what sailors are, I tell you. They're not the sort of people you marry.
Then never mind about marrying them. You can make it pay all the same. He, the Englishman, the man with a yacht, he paid out 300 kroner, he did, and she wasn't a bit prettier than you.
Out you go.
Come, you're not going to hit me, I hope.
Yes, if you begin talking about mother, I shall hit you. Now get away with you, I say. Don't slam the doors. Young Mr. Alving is asleep.
He's asleep, I know. You're mightily taken up about Mr. Alving. You don't mean to say it's him as...
Be off this minute. You're crazy, I tell you. No, not that way. There comes Pastor Manders down the kitchen stairs with you.
Yes, I'm going. But just you talk to him, his reverence. He's the man to tell you what a child owes its father. For I'm your father all the same, you know. I can prove it from the church register.
Good morning, Miss Engstrand.
Oh, good morning, Pastor Manders. Has the boat come in already?
It has just arrived. Oh, terrible weather we've been having lately.
Oh, it's a blessing for the farmers, though, sir.
No doubt you are quite right. We townspeople give too little thought to that.
Oh, may I help you with your coat?
Mm.
There. How wet it is. I'll just hang it up in the hall. And your umbrella, too. I'll open it and let it dry.
It's a comfort to get safe under cover. I hope everything is going on well here.
Yes, thank you, sir.
You have your hands full, I suppose, in preparation for tomorrow?
Oh, yes, there's plenty to do. Yes.
And Mrs. Alving is at home, I trust.
Oh, dear. Yes, she's just upstairs making a cup of chocolate for young master.
Ah, yes, I heard down at the pier that Oswald had arrived.
Yes, he came the day before yesterday. We didn't expect him before today.
Quite strong and well, I hope.
Yes, thank you. Quite. But dreadfully tired with the journey. He has made one rush right through from Paris, the whole way in one train, I believe. He's sleeping a little now, I think, so perhaps we'd better talk a little quietly.
Shh. As quietly as you please.
Now do sit down, Pastor Manders, and make yourself comfortable.
Oh.
There, are you comfortable now, sir?
Thanks. Extremely so. Do you know, Miss Engstrand, I positively believe you have grown since I last saw you.
Do you think so, sir? Mrs. Alving says I filled out, too.
Filled out? Well, perhaps a little. Just enough.
Shall I tell Mrs. Alving you are here?
Thanks. There is no hurry, my dear child. By the by, Regina, my good girl, tell me, how is your father getting on out here?
Oh, thank you, sir. He's getting on well enough.
He called upon me last time he was in town.
Did he? Indeed. He's always so glad of a chance of talking to you, sir.
And you often look in upon him at his work?
Of course. When I have time.
Your father is not a man of strong character, Miss Engstrand. He stands terribly in need of a guiding hand.
Oh, yes. I dare say he does.
He requires someone near him who he cares for, and whose judgment he respects. He frankly admitted as much when he last came to see me.
Yes, he mentioned something of the sort to me. But I don't know whether Mrs. Alving can spare me, especially now that we've got the new orphanage to attend to, and I should be so sorry to leave Mrs. Alving. She's been so kind to me.
But a daughter's duty, my good girl. Of course. We should first have to get your mistress's consent.
But I don't know whether it would be quite proper for me, at my age, to keep house for a single man.
What? My dear Miss Engstrand, when the man is your own father?
Yes, that may be, but all the same. Now, if it were in a thoroughly nice house with a real gentleman.
Why, my dear Regina.
One I could love and respect and be a daughter to.
Yes, but my dear,
then
my
I should
child.
be town. It's very lonely out here, you know. yourself, sir, what it is to be alone in the world. And I can assure you I'm both quick and willing. Don't you know of any such place for me, sir?
I? No, certainly not.
But, dear sir, do remember me if...
Yes, certainly, Miss Engstrand.
For if I...
Will you be so good as to tell your mistress I am here?
I will, at once, sir.
Welcome to Rosenwald, my dear pastor.
How do you do, Mrs. Alving? I am here, as I promised.
Always punctual to the minute.
You may believe it was not easy for me to get away with all the boards and committees I belong to.
That makes you all the kinder of you to come so early. Now we can get to our business before dinner. But where's your luggage?
I left it down at the inn. I shall sleep there tonight.
Are you really not to be persuaded, even now, to pass the night under my roof?
No, Miss Alving. Many thanks. I shall stay at the inn as usual. It is so conveniently near the landing stage.
Well, you must have your own way. But I really should have thought we two old people.
Now you are making fun of me. You are naturally in great spirits today. What with tomorrow's festival and Oswald's return.
Yes, you can think of what a delight it is to me. It's more than 2 years since he was home last. And now he has promised to stay with me all the winter.
Has he really? That is very nice and dutiful of him. For I can well believe that life in Rome and Paris is very different attractions. For many we can offer here.
But here he has his mother, you see. My own darling boy. He hasn't forgotten his old mother.
It would be grievous indeed if absence and absorption in art and that sort of thing were to blunt his natural feelings.
Yes, you may well say so. But there's nothing of that sort to fear with him. I'm quite curious to see whether you recognize him. He'll be down presently. He's upstairs just now, resting a little on the sofa. But do sit down, my dear pastor.
Thank you. Are you sure this is a convenient moment?
Certainly.
Very well. Then let me show you. Now, to begin with, tell me, Mrs. Alving, how do these books come to be here?
These books? They are books I'm reading.
Do you read this sort of literature?
Certainly I do.
Do you feel better or happier for such reading?
I feel, so to speak, more secure.
That is strange. How do you mean?
Well, I seem to find explanation and confirmation of all sorts of things I myself have been thinking. But that is the wonderful part of it, Pastor Manders. There's really nothing new in these books, nothing but what most people think and believe. Only most people either don't formulate it to themselves or else keep quiet about it.
Great heavens. Do you really believe that most people...
I do, indeed.
But surely not in this country, not here among us.
Yes, certainly, here as elsewhere.
Well, I really must say...
What do you object to in these books?
Object to in them? Surely you do not suppose that I have nothing better to do than to study such publications as these?
That is to say, you know nothing of what you are condemning?
I have read enough about these writings to disapprove of them.
Yes, but your own judgment.
My dear Mrs. Alving, there are many occasions in life when one must rely upon others. Things are so ordered in this world, and it is well that they are. Otherwise, what would become of society?
Well, I dare say you're right there.
Besides, I of course do not deny that there may be much that is attractive in such books. Nor can I blame you for wishing to keep up with the intellectual movements that are said to be going on in the greater world outside, where you have left your son as so much of his life. But one should not talk about it, Mrs. Alving. One is certainly not bound to account to everybody for what one reads and thinks within one's own four walls.
Of course not. I quite agree with you.
Only think now how you are bound to consider the interests of this orphanage, which you decided on founding at a time when, if I understand you right, you thought very differently on spiritual matters.
Oh, yes. I quite admit that. But it was about the orphanage.
It was about the orphanage we were to speak. Yes. All I say is this. Prudence, my dear lady. And now, let us get to business. Do you see these?
The documents.
All and in perfect order. I can tell you it was hard work to get them in time. I had to put on a strong pressure. The authorities are almost morbidly scrupulous when there is any decisive step to be taken. But here they are at last. See, here is the formal deed of gift of the parcel of ground known as Solvik in the manor of Rosenveld, with all the newly constructed buildings, schoolrooms, master's house, and chapel. And here is the legal fiat for the endowment and for the trust deed of the institution. Will you look at them? Mm-hmm. So, deed of trust for the children's home, to be known as Captain Alving's Foundation.
So there it is.
I have chosen the designation captain rather than chamberlain. Captain looks less pretentious.
Oh yes, just as you think best.
And here, you have the bank account of the capital lying at interest to cover the current expenses of the orphanage.
Thank you. But please keep it. It will be more convenient.
With pleasure. I think we will leave the money in the bank for the present. The interest is certainly not what we could wish. 4% with 6 months' notice of withdrawal. If a good mortgage could be found later on, of course it must be a first mortgage and an unimpeachable security, then we could consider the matter.
Certainly. Dear Pastor Manders, you are the best judge in these affairs.
I will keep my eyes open at any rate. But for now, there is one thing more which I have several times been intending to ask you.
What is that?
Shall the orphanage buildings be insured or not?
Of course they must be insured.
Well, wait a moment, Mrs. Alving. Let us look into the matter a little more closely.
Everything I have is insured. Buildings, furniture, livestock, and crops.
Of course you have, on your own estate, and so have I, of course. But here, you see, it is quite another matter. The orphanage is to be consecrated, as it were, to a higher purpose.
Yes, but that's no reason.
For my own part, I should certainly not see the smallest impropriety in guarding against all contingencies.
Oh, I should think not.
But what is the general feeling in the neighborhood? You, of course, know better than I.
The general feeling?
Is there any considerable number of people, really responsible people, who might be scandalized?
What do you mean by really responsible people?
Well, I mean people in such independent and influential positions that one cannot help attaching some weight to their opinions.
There are several people of that sort here who would very likely be shocked if...
There, you see? In town, we have many such people. Followers of other denominations. People would only be too ready to interpret our action as a sign that neither you nor I had the right faith in a higher providence.
For your own part, my dear pastor, you can at least tell yourself that...
Yes, I know. My conscience would be quite easy. That is true enough. But, nevertheless, we should not escape grave misinterpretation, and that might very likely react unfavorably upon the orphanage.
Well, in that case...
Nor can I entirely lose sight of the difficult, I might even say painful position in which I might perhaps be placed. In the leading circles of the town, people take a lively interest in this orphanage. It is, of course, founded partly for the benefit of the town as well, and it is to be hoped it will, to a considerable extent, ease the burden of taxpayers in respect to the poor. Now, as I've been your advisor and have had the business arrangements in my hands, I cannot but fear that I may have to bear the brunt of fanaticism.
Oh, you mustn't run the risk of that.
To say nothing of the attacks that would assuredly be made upon me in certain papers and periodicals, which...
Enough, my dear Pastor Manders. that consideration is quite decisive.
Then you do not wish the orphanage to be insured?
No, we will let it alone.
But if now a disaster were to happen, one can never tell. Should you be able to make good the damage?
No, I tell you plainly, I could do nothing of the kind.
Then I must tell you, Mrs. Alving, we are taking no small responsibility upon ourselves.
Do you think we can do otherwise?
No, that is just the point. We really cannot do otherwise. We ought not to expose ourselves to misinterpretation. And we have no right whatever to antagonize public opinion.
You, as a clergyman, certainly should not.
I really think, too, we may trust that such an institution has fortune on its side. In fact, that it stands under a special providence.
Let us hope so, Pastor Manders.
Then we will let it take its chance.
Yes, certainly.
Very well. So be it. Then, no insurance.
It's odd that you should just happen to mention the matter today.
I've often thought of asking you about it.
For we very nearly had a fire down there yesterday.
You don't say so.
It was a trifling matter. A heap of shavings had caught fire in the carpenter's workshop.
Where Engstrand works?
Yes. They say he's often very careless with matches.
He has so much on his mind, that man. So many things to fight against. Thank God he is now striving to lead a decent life.
No. Who says so?
He himself assures me of it. And he is certainly a good workman.
So long as he's sober.
Ah, that melancholy weakness. But he is often driven to it by his injured leg, he says. Last time he was in town, I was really touched by him. He came and thanked me so warmly for having gotten him work here, so that he might be near Regina.
He doesn't see much of her.
Oh, yes. He has a talk with her every day. He told me so himself.
Well, it may be so.
He feels so acutely that he needs someone to keep a firm hold on him when temptation comes. That is what I cannot help liking Jacob Engstrand. He comes to you so helplessly, accusing himself and confessing his own weakness. The last time he was talking to me, believe me, Mrs. Alving, supposing it were a real necessity for him to have Regina home.
Regina?
You must not set yourself against it.
Indeed, I shall set myself against it. And besides, Regina's to work in the orphanage.
But after all, remember, he is her father.
Oh, I know very well what sort of father he has been to her. No, she shall never go with him with my goodwill.
My dear lady, don't take the matter so warmly. You sadly misjudge poor Engstrand. You seem to be quite terrified.
It makes no difference. I have taken Regina into my house, and there she shall stay. Hush, dear Manders, say no more about it. Listen, there is Oswald coming downstairs. Now we'll think of no one but him.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought you were in the study. Good morning, Pastor Manders.
Oh, how strange.
Well now, Pastor Manders, what do you think of him?
Can it really be?
Yes, it really is a prodigal son, sir.
My dear young friend.
Well, the son in any case.
Oswald is thinking of the time when you were so much opposed to him being a painter.
To our human eyes, many a step seems dubious, which afterwards proves. But first of all, welcome home. Do not think, my dear Oswald, I suppose I may call you by your Christian name.
What else should you call me?
Very good. What I wanted to say was this, my dear Oswald. You must not think that I utterly condemn the artist's calling. I have no doubt there are many who can keep their inner self unharmed in that profession, as in any other.
Let's hope so.
I know one person who has kept both his inner and his outer self unharmed. Just look at him, Pastor Manders.
Yes, my dear mother. Say no more about it.
Why, certainly, that is undeniable. And you have begun to make a name for yourself already. The newspapers have often spoken of you most favorably. Then again, I fancy I haven't seen your name as much lately.
I haven't been able to paint so much lately.
Even a painter needs a little rest now and then.
No doubt, no doubt. And meanwhile, he can be preparing himself and mustering his energies for some great work.
Yes. Mother, will dinner be ready soon?
In less than half an hour. He has quite the appetite, thank God.
And a taste for tobacco, I see.
Oh, I found my father's pipe in my room, so I...
Ah, then that accounts for it.
For what?
When Oswald appeared there in the doorway, with the pipe in his mouth, I could have sworn I saw his father, as though he were alive again.
No. Really?
How can you say that? Oswald takes after me.
Yes, but there is an expression about the corners of the mouth, something about the lips that reminds one exactly of Alving. At any rate, now when he's smoking.
Not in the least. Oswald has a rather clerical curve about his mouth, I think.
Yes, yes. Some of my colleagues have much the same expression.
Put your pipe away, my dear boy. I won't have smoking in here.
By all means. I only wanted to try it. I once smoked it when I was a child.
You?
Yes. I was quite small at the time. I recollect I came up to Father's room one evening when he was in great spirits.
Oh, you can't recollect anything of those times.
Oh yes, I recollect it distinctly. He sat me on his knee and gave me the pipe. Smoke, boy, he said. Smoke away, boy. And I smoked as hard as I could until I felt I was growing quite pale and the perspiration stood in great drops on my forehead. He burst out laughing heartily.
Now, very strange.
My dear friend, it's only something Oswald has dreamt.
No, Mother, I assure you I didn't dream it. For, don't you remember this? You came and carried me back into the nursery. Then I was sick and I saw you were crying. Did Father often play such practical jokes?
In his youth, he overflowed with the joy of life.
Yet managed to do so much in the world. So much that was good, useful. Though he died so young.
Yes. You have inherited the name of an industrious and admirable man, my dear Oswald Alving. No doubt it will be an incentive to you.
It ought to, indeed.
It was good for you to come home for the ceremony in his honor.
I could do no less for my father.
And best of all, I am to keep him here so long.
You're going to spend the winter at home, I hear.
My stay is indefinite, sir. But yes, it's good to be at home.
Yes, isn't it, dear?
You went out into the world early, my dear Oswald.
I did. I sometimes wonder whether it wasn't too early.
Oh, not at all. A healthy young lad is all the better for it, especially when he's an only child. He oughtn't hang on at home with his mother and father and get spoilt.
That is a very disputable point, Mrs. Alving. A child's proper place is, and must be, their parental home.
There, I quite agree with you, Pastor Manders.
Only look at your own son. There is no reason why we should not say this in his presence. What has the consequence been for him? He is 26 or 27 years old and has never had the opportunity of learning what a real home is really like.
I beg your pardon, Pastor. There you are quite mistaken.
Oh? I thought you had lived almost exclusively in artistic circles.
So I have.
And chiefly among the younger artists.
Yes, certainly.
But I thought few of those young fellows could afford to set up house and support a family.
There are many who cannot afford to marry, sir.
Yes, that is just what I say.
But they may have a home for all that, and several of them have, as a matter of fact. Very pleasant and comfortable homes they are, too.
But I'm not talking of bachelor's quarters. By a home, I understand the home of a family, where a man lives with his wife and children.
Yes, or with his children and his children's mother.
What? Good heavens.
Well?
Lives with his children's mother?
Yes. Would you have him turn his children's mother out of doors?
Then it is illicit relations you are talking of. Irregular marriages, as people call them.
I have never noticed anything particularly irregular about the life these people lead.
But how is it possible that a young man or young woman with any decency of feeling can endure to live on that way? In the eyes of all the world.
What are they to do? A poor young artist, a poor girl. Marriage costs a great deal. What are they to do?
What are they to do? Let me tell you, Mr. Alving, what they ought to do. They ought to exercise self-restraint at the outset. That is what they ought to do.
That doctrine will scarcely satisfy warm-blooded people who love each other.
No, scarcely.
How can the authorities tolerate such things? Allow them to go in the light of day. Was I not right to be deeply concerned about your son? In circles where open immorality prevails, and is even a sort of accepted position.
Let me tell you, sir, that I've been in the habit of spending nearly all my Sundays in one or two such irregular homes.
Sundays of all days.
Isn't that the day to enjoy oneself? But never have I heard an offensive word there, and still less have I witnessed anything that could be called immoral. No. Do you know when and where I have come across immorality in artistic circles?
No. Thank heaven I don't.
Well then, allow me to inform you. I have met with it when one or another of our model husbands and fathers has come to Paris to have a look round on his own account and has done the artist the honor of visiting their humble haunts. They knew what was what. These gentlemen could tell us about places and things we have never dreamt of.
What? Do you mean to say that respectable men from this country would?
Have you ever heard these respectable men, when they got home again, talking about the way in which immorality runs rampant abroad?
Yes, no doubt.
I have too.
Well, you may take their word for it. They know what they're talking about. Oh, that great, free, glorious life out there should be defiled in such a way.
Mustn't get excited, Oswald. It's not good for you.
Yes, you're quite right, Mother. It's bad for me, I know. You see, I'm wretchedly worn out. I shall go for a little turn before dinner. Excuse me, Pastor Manders. I know you can't see it from my point of view, but I couldn't help speaking out.
My poor boy.
You may well say so. And this is what he has come to. He called himself the prodigal son. Alas, alas. And what do you say to all this?
I said that Oswald was right in every word he said.
Right. Right. In such principles.
Here in my loneliness, I have come to much the same way of thinking, Pastor Manders. But I never dared to say anything. Well, now my boy shall speak for me.
You are greatly to be pitied, Mrs. Alving, but I must speak seriously to you. And now it is no longer your business manager and advisor, your own and your husband's old friend, who stands before you. It is the priest who stood before you in the moment of your life when you had gone farthest astray.
And what is the priest to say to me?
I will first stir up your memory a little. The occasion is appropriate. Tomorrow will be the 10th anniversary of your husband's death. Tomorrow the memorial in his honor will be unveiled. Tomorrow I shall have to speak to the whole assembled multitude. But today I will speak to you alone.
Very well, Pastor Manders. Speak.
Have you forgotten that after less than a year of married life, you stood on the verge of an abyss? That you forsook your house and home? That you fled from your husband? Yes, Mrs. Alving, fled. And refused to return to him, however much he begged and prayed you.
Have you forgotten how infinitely miserable I was in that first year?
It is the very mark of the rebellious spirit to demand happiness in this earthly life. What right have we human beings to happiness? We have simply to do our duty, Mrs. Alving, and your duty was to hold firmly to the man you had once chosen, and to whom you were bound by the holiest of ties.
You know very well what sort of life Alving was leading, what excesses he was guilty of.
I know very well what rumors there were about him, and I am the last to approve the life he led in his young days, if report did not wrong him. But a wife is not appointed to her husband's judge. It was your duty to bear with humility the cross which a higher power had, in its wisdom, laid upon you. But instead of that, you rebelliously threw away the cross, desert the erring soul whom you should have supported, go and risk your good name and reputation, and nearly succeeded in ruining other people's reputation in the process.
Other people's? One other person's, you mean?
It was incredibly reckless of you to seek refuge with me.
With our priest? With our intimate friend?
Just on that account, yes. You may thank God that I possess the necessary firmness, that I succeeded in dissuading you from your wild intentions, and that it was vouchsafed me to lead you back to the path of duty and home to your lawful husband.
Yes, Pastor Manders, that was certainly your work.
I was but a poor instrument in a higher hand. And what a blessing has it not proved to you all the days of your life that I induced you to resume the yoke of duty and obedience? Did not everything happen as I foretold? Did not Alving turn his back on his transgressions, as a man should? Did he not live with you from that time lovingly and blamelessly all his days? Did he not become a benefactor to the whole district? And did he not help you to rise to his own level so that you, little by little, became his right hand in all his undertakings? And a very capable right hand too. Oh, I know, Mrs. Alving, that praise is due to you. But now I come to the next great era in your life.
What do you mean?
Just as you once disowned a wife's duty, so you have since disowned a mother's. You have been all your life under the dominion of a pestilent spirit of self-will. The whole bias of your mind has been towards insubordination and lawlessness. You've never known how to endure any bond. Everything that has weighed upon you in life, you have cast away without care or conscience. Like a burden you were too free to throw off at will. It did not please you to be a wife any longer, and you left your husband. You found it troublesome to be a mother, and you sent your child forth to live among strangers.
Yes, that is true. I did so.
And thus you have become a stranger to him.
No. No, I am not.
Yes, yes, you are. You must be. And in what state of mind has he returned to you? Bethink yourself well, Mrs. Alving. You sinned greatly against your husband. That much you recognize by raising this memorial to him. Recognize now also how you have sinned against your son. There may yet be time to lead him back from the paths of wantonness. Turn back yourself and save what may yet be saved in him. For verily, Mrs. Alving, you are a guilt-laden mother. This I have regarded as my duty to say to you.
You have now spoken out, Pastor Manders. And tomorrow you are to speak publicly in memory of my husband. I shall not speak tomorrow. But now I will speak frankly to you, as you have spoken to me.
Of course, you will plead excuses for your conduct.
No, I will only tell you a story.
Oh?
What you have just said about my husband and me, and our life after you had brought me back to the path of duty, as you called it. About all that, nothing from personal observation. From that moment, you, who had been our intimate friend, never set foot in our house again.
You and your husband left the town immediately after.
You, and in my husband's lifetime, yes, in my husband's lifetime, you never came to see us. It was business that forced you to visit me when you undertook the affairs of the orphanage.
Helen, if that is meant as a reproach, I would beg you to bear in mind
the regard you owe to your position, yes, and that I was a runaway wife. One can never be too cautious with such unprincipled creatures.
My dear Mrs. Alving, you know that is an absurd exaggeration.
Well, suppose it is. My point is that your judgment as to my married life is founded upon nothing but supposed common knowledge and report.
I admit that. What then?
What now? Manders, I will tell you the truth. I've sworn to myself that one day you should know it, you alone.
What is the truth then?
The truth is that my husband died just as dissolute as he had lived all his days.
What did you say?
After 19 years of marriage, as dissolute in his desires, at any rate, as he was before you married us.
And those wild oats, those irregularities, those excesses, if you call a desolate life?
Our doctor used the expression.
I do not understand you.
You need not.
It almost makes me dizzy. Your whole married life, the seeming union of all these years, was nothing more than a hidden abyss.
Neither more nor less. Now you know it.
This is inconceivable to me. I cannot grasp it. I cannot realize it. But how was it possible how could such a state of affairs be kept secret?
That has been my struggle, ceaseless, day after day. After Oswald's birth, I thought Alving seemed to be a little better. But it did not last long. And then I had to struggle twice as hard, fighting as though for life or death, so that nobody should know what sort of man my child's father was. And you know what power Alving had of winning people's hearts. Nobody seemed to be able to believe anything but good of him. He was one of those people whose life does not bite upon their reputation. But at last, Manders, you must know the whole story. The most repulsive thing of all happened.
More repulsive than what you have told me already.
I have gone on bearing with him, although I knew very well the secrets of his life out of doors. But when he brought the scandal within our walls...
You mean here?
Yes, here, in our own home. It was right there in the dining room that I first came to know of it. And I was busy with something in there, and the door was standing ajar. And I heard our housemaid come up from the garden with water for the flowers.
Well?
And soon after, I heard Alving come in too. I heard him say something softly to her. And then I heard... It is still... The sound's still in my ears, so hateful and yet so ludicrous. I heard my own servant maid whisper, "Let me go, Mr. Alving, let me be."
What unseemly levity on his part! But it cannot have been more than levity, Mrs. Alving. Believe me, it cannot.
I soon knew what to believe. Mr. Alving had his way with the girl, and that act had consequences, Pastor Manders.
Such things in this house. In this house.
I had endured a great deal in this house. To keep him at home in the evenings and at night, I had to make myself his companion in his secret liaisons up in his room. There I have had to sit alone with him, to clink glasses and drink with him, and to listen to his obscene and senseless driveling. I have had to fight with him to get him dragged to bed.
And you were able to bear all this?
I had to bear it for my little boy's sake. But when the last insult was added, when my own servant maid, in that moment I swore to myself, this shall come to an end. And so I took the reins into my own hand, the whole control over him and everything else. For now I had a weapon against him, you see. He dare not oppose me. It was then that I sent Oswald away from home. He was nearly 7 years old and was beginning to observe and ask questions, as children so often do, and that I could not bear. It seemed to me the child must be poisoned by merely breathing the air of this polluted home. That was why I sent him away. And now you can see, too, why he was never allowed to set foot inside his home so long as his father lived. No one knows what it had cost me.
You have indeed had a life of trial.
And I could not have survived it if I had not had my work. For I may truly say that I have worked. All the additions to the estate, all the improvements, all the labor-saving appliances that Alving was so much praised for having introduced. Do you suppose he had the energy for anything of the sort? He, who lay all day on the sofa reading old court circulars. No. But I may tell you this too. When he had his better intervals, it was I who urged him on. It was I who had to drag the whole load when he relapsed into his evil ways or sank into sniveling wretchedness.
And it is to this man that you raise a memorial?
There you see the power of a guilty conscience.
Guilty? What do you mean?
It always seemed to me impossible, but that the truth must come out and be believed. So the orphanage was to silence all rumors and set every doubt to rest.
In that you have certainly not missed your aim, Mrs. Alving.
Besides, I had one other reason. I was determined that Oswald, my own boy, should inherit nothing whatsoever from his father.
Then it is Alving's fortune.
Yes. The sums I have spent upon the orphanage year by year make up the amount. I have calculated it precisely. The amount which made Lieutenant Alving a good match back in his day.
I don't understand.
It was the sum with which he bought me. I do not wish that money to pass into Oswald's hand. My son shall inherit everything from me. Everything. Are you back again already, my dear, dear boy?
Yes. What can a fellow do out of doors in this eternal rain? But I hear dinner is ready. That's splendid.
A parcel has come for you, Mrs. Alving.
Oh, no doubt copies of the ode for tomorrow's ceremony.
And dinner is ready.
Very well. We will come directly. I will just...
Will Mr. Alving like red or white wine?
Both, if you please.
Yeah, very well, sir.
I may as well help her uncork them.
Yes, as I thought so. Here is the ceremonial ode, Pastor Manders.
How am I to deliver my address tomorrow with a clear conscience?
We will get through it somehow.
Yes, it would not be wise to provoke scandal.
No. And this long, hateful comedy will be ended. The day after tomorrow, I shall act in every way as though he who is dead never lived in this house. There shall be no one here but my boy and his mother.
Oswald, are you mad? Let me go.
What can be the matter? What is it, Mrs. Alving?
Ghosts. The couple from the conservatory, risen again.
Is it possible? Regina? Is she?
Yes. Come, not a word. I am glad you enjoyed the meal, Pastor Manders. Aren't you coming too, Oswald?
No, thank you. I think I should go out a little.
Oh, do. Yes, do. The weather seems a little brighter now. Regina?
Yes, Mrs. Alving?
Go down to the laundry and help with the garlands.
Yes, Mrs. Alving.
I suppose he cannot overhear us in there.
Not when the door is shut. Besides, he's just going out.
I am still quite upset. I don't know how I was able to swallow a morsel of dinner.
Nor I. But what is to be done now?
Yes, what is to be done? I am really quite at a loss. I am so utterly without experience in matters of this sort.
I feel that, so far, no harm has been done.
No, heaven forbid. But it is an unseemly state of things, nevertheless.
It is only an idle fancy on Oswald's part. You may be sure of that.
Well, as I say, I am not accustomed to affairs of the kind, but I should certainly think...
She must leave this house. And at once. That is as clear as daylight.
Yes, of course she must.
But where to? It would not be right to...
Where to? Home to her father, of course.
To whom, did you say?
To her... Oh, but then Engstrand is not... Good God, Mrs. Alving, it's impossible. Surely you must be mistaken.
Unfortunately, there was no possibility of mistake. Johanna confessed everything to me, and Alving could not deny it. So there was nothing to be done but to get the matter hushed up.
No, you could do nothing else.
The girl left our service at once, and got a good sum of money to hold her tongue for the time. The rest she managed for herself when she got to town. She renewed her old acquaintance with Engstrand, no doubt let him see that she had money in her purse, and told him some tale about a foreigner who came here with a yacht that summer. So she and Engstrand got married in haste. Why, you married them yourself.
But then how to account for... I recollect it distinct. Engstrand coming to give notice of the marriage. He was quite overwhelmed with contrition, and bitterly reproached himself for the misbehavior he and his sweetheart had been guilty of.
Yes, of course he had to take the blame upon himself.
But such duplicity on his part, and towards me too. I never could have believed it of Jacob Engstrand. I shall not fail to take him seriously to task. He may be sure of that. And the immorality of it all. For money. How much did the girl receive?
300 kroner.
Just think of it. What a miserable 300 kroner. To go and marry a fallen woman.
But what if you to say to me, I went and married a fallen man?
What? Good heavens. What are you talking about? A fallen man?
Do you think Alving was any purer when I went with him to the altar than Joanna was when Engstrand married her?
Well, but there is a world of difference between the two cases.
Not so much difference after all, except in the price. A miserable 300 kroner versus a whole fortune.
How can you compare such absolutely dissimilar cases? You are taking counsel with your own heart and with your family as natural advisors.
I thought you understood where what you call my heart had strayed to at the time.
Had I understood anything of the kind, I should not have been a daily guest in your husband's house.
At any rate, the fact remains that with myself I took no counsel whatsoever.
Well then, with your nearest relatives as your duty bade you, with your mother and your 2 aunts.
Yes, that is true. Those 3 cast up the account for me. Oh, it's remarkable how easily they determined that it would be downright madness to refuse such an offer. If mother could only see me now and know what all that grandeur has come to.
Nobody could be held responsible for the outcome. This, at least, remains clear. Your marriage was in full accordance with law and order.
Perpetual law and order. I often think that is what does all the mischief in this world of ours.
Mrs. Alving, that is a sinful way of talking.
Well, I can't help it. I must rid myself of all this constraint and insincerity. I can endure it no longer. I must work my way out to freedom.
What do you mean by that?
I had never to have concealed the facts of Alving's life. But at the time, I dared not do anything else. I was afraid, partly on my own account. I was such a coward.
Coward?
If people had come to know anything, they would have said, poor man with a runaway wife, no wonder he kicks over the traces.
Such remarks might have been made with a certain show of right.
I were what I ought to be. I should go to Oswald and say, listen, my boy, your father led a vicious life.
Merciful heavens!
And then I should tell him all I have told you, every word of it.
You shock me unspeakably, Mrs. Alving.
Yes, I know that. I know that very well. I myself am shocked at the idea. I'm such a coward.
You call it cowardice to do your plain duty? Have you forgotten that a son ought to love and honor his father and mother?
Do not let us talk in such general terms. Let us ask, ought Oswald to love and honor Chamberlain Alving?
Is there no voice in your mother's heart that forbids you to destroy your son's ideals?
But what about the truth?
What about the ideals?
Oh, ideals! If only I were not such a coward.
Do not despise ideals, Mrs. Alving. They will avenge themselves cruelly. Take Oswald's case. He, unfortunately, seems to have few enough ideals as it is. And I can see that his father stands before him as an ideal.
Yes, that is true.
And this habit of mind you have yourself implanted and fostered by your letters.
Yes. In my superstitious awe for duty and the properties, I lied to my boy year after year. Oh, what a coward! What a coward I have been!
You have established a happy illusion in your son's heart, Mrs. Alving, and it assuredly you ought not to undervalue it.
And who knows whether it is so happy after all. But at any rate, I will not have any tampering with Regina. We shall not go and wreck the poor girl's life.
No, good God, that would be terrible.
If I knew he meant it seriously and that it would be for his happiness.
What? What do you mean by that?
But it couldn't be, for unfortunately Regina is not the right sort of woman.
Well, what then? What do you mean?
If I weren't such a pitiful coward, I should say to him, marry her, or make what arrangement you please. Only let us have nothing underhanded about it.
Merciful heavens. Would you let them marry? Anything so dreadful, so unheard of.
Do you really mean unheard of? Frankly, Pastor Manders, do you suppose that throughout the country there are not plenty of married couples as closely akin as they?
I don't in the least understand you.
Oh, yes, indeed you do.
Ah, you were thinking of the possibility that, alas, yes, family life is certainly not always so pure as it ought to be. But in such a case as you point to, one can never know, at least with any certainty. Here, on the other hand, that you, a mother, can think of letting your son.
I cannot. Wouldn't for anything in the world. That is precisely what I'm saying.
No, because you are a coward, as you put it. But if you are not a coward, then, good God, relationships are shocking.
So far as that goes. They say we are all sprung from connections of that sort. And who is it that arranged the world so, Pastor Manders?
Questions of that kind I must decline to discuss with you, Mrs. Alving. You are far from being in the right frame of mind for them. But you dare to call your scruples cowardly?
Let me tell you what I mean. I'm timid and faint-hearted because of the ghosts that hang about me. And that I can never shake off.
What do you say hangs about you?
Ghosts. When I heard Regina and Oswald in there, it was as though ghosts rose up before me. But I almost think we are all of us ghosts, Pastor Manders. There's not only what we have inherited from our mother and father that walks within us. It's all sort of dead ideas and lifeless old beliefs and so forth. They have no vitality, but they cling to us all the same, and we cannot shake them off. Whenever I take up a newspaper, I seem to see ghosts gliding between the lines. There must be ghosts all over the country, as thick of the sands of the sea. And then we are, one and all, so pitifully afraid of them.
So here we have the fruits of your reading. And pretty fruits they are, upon my word, all those horrible revolutionary free-thinking books.
You are mistaken, my dear pastor. It was you yourself who set me thinking, and I thank you for it with all my heart.
I?
Yes. When you forced me under the yoke of what you called duty and obligation, when you lauded as right and proper what my whole soul rebelled against as something loathsome, it was then that I began to look into the seams of your doctrines. I wanted only to pick at a single knot. But when I had got that undone, the whole thing raveled out. And then I understood that it was all machine sewn.
And was that the upshot of my life's hardest battle?
Call it rather your most pitiful defeat.
It was my greatest victory, Helen. The victory over myself.
It was a crime against us both.
When you went astray and came to me crying, here I am, take me. I commanded you, saying, woman, go home to your lawful husband. Was that a crime?
Yes, I think so.
We two do not understand each other.
Not now, at any rate.
Never in my most secret thoughts have I regarded you otherwise than as another's wife.
Oh, indeed.
Helen!
People so easily forget their past selves.
I do not. I am what I always was.
Well, well. Don't let us talk of old times any longer. You are now up to your ears in boards and committees, and I am fighting my battle with ghosts, both within me and without.
I will help you bring to heel the ghosts around you. After all the terrible things I've heard from you today, I cannot in good conscience permit an unprotected girl to remain in your house.
Don't you think the best plan would be to get her provided for? I mean, by a good marriage.
No doubt. I think it would be desirable for her in every respect. Regina is now at the age when Of course, I do not know much about these things, but
Regina matured very early.
yes, I thought so. I have an impression that she was remarkably well developed physically when I prepared her for confirmation. But in the meantime, she ought to be at home under her father's eye. But, of course, Engstrand is not that he could do so high truth for me.
Who can this be? Come in.
I humbly beg your pardon, but
Aha!
Is that you, Engstrand?
there was none of the servants about, so I took the great liberty of just knocking.
Very well. Come in. Do you want to speak to me?
No, thank you, ma'am. It was actually with his reverence I wanted to have a word or two.
Ah, indeed. You want to speak to me, do you?
Yes, I'd like so terribly much too.
Well, may I ask what you want?
Well, it was just this, your reverence. We've been paid off down there. My grateful thanks to you, ma'am. And now everything's finished. I've been thinking it would be but right and proper if we, that have been working so honestly together all this time, well, I was thinking we ought to conclude the night with a little prayer meeting.
A prayer meeting? Down at the orphanage?
Oh, if your reverence doesn't think it proper.
Oh, yes, I do. But
I've been in the habit of offering up a little prayer evening in the evenings myself.
Have you?
Yes, every now and then just a little edification, in a manner of speaking, but I'm a poor, common man, and have little enough gift, God help me. And so I thought, as the Reverend Mr. Manders happened to be here,
well, you see, Engstrand, I have a question to put to you first. Are you in the right frame of mind for such a meeting? Do you feel your conscience clear and at ease?
Oh, God help us, your reverence. We'd better not talk about conscience.
Yes, that is what we must talk about. What have you to answer?
Why, a man's conscience. It can be bad enough now and then.
Ah, you admit that. Then perhaps you will make a clean breast of it and tell me the real truth about Regina.
Manders.
Please allow me.
About Regina? Lord, what a turn you gave me. There's nothing wrong about Regina, is there?
We will hope not. But I mean, what is the truth about you and Regina? You pass for her father, hmm?
Well, your reverence knows all about me and poor Joanna.
Come now, no more prevarication. Your wife told Mrs. Alving the whole story before quitting her service.
Well then, now did she really?
You see, we know you now, Engstrand.
And she swore and took her Bible oath.
Did she take her Bible oath?
No, she only swore, but she did it that solemnly.
And you have hidden the truth from me all these years, hidden it from me, who have trusted you without reserve in everything.
Well, I can't deny that.
Have I deserved this of you, Engstrand? Have I not always been ready to help you in word and deed, so far as it lay within my power? Answer me. Have I not?
It would have been in a poor state many a time if it not were for your reverence.
And this is how you reward me. You cause me to enter falsehoods in the church register, and you withhold from me year after year the explanations you owe alike to me and to the truth. Your conduct has been wholly inexcusable, Engstrand. From this time forward, I wash my hands of you.
Yes, I suppose there's no help for it.
How can you possibly justify yourself?
Who could have ever thought she'd have gone and made bad worse by talking about it? Will your reverence just imagine for a moment that you yourself had been in the same trouble as poor Joanna?
Aye.
Lord bless you, I don't mean just exactly the same, but I mean, if your reverence had anything to be ashamed of in the eyes of the world, as the saying goes, we men folk oughtn't to judge a poor woman too hardly, your reverence.
I am not doing so. It is you I am reproaching.
Might I make so bold as to ask your reverence a bit of a question?
Yes, if you want to.
Isn't it right and proper for a man to raise up the fallen?
Well, certainly it is.
And isn't it a man bound to keep his word, his sacred word?
Why, of course he is. But
When Joanna had got into trouble with that Englishman, or it might have been an American, or a Russian, as they call them, well, you see, she came down into the town. Poor thing. She sent me about my business once or twice before, for she couldn't bear the sight of anything that wasn't handsome. And I'd got this damaged leg of mine. Your Reverence recollects how I ventured up into dancing saloons where seafaring men was carrying on with drink and devilry, as the saying goes. And then when I was for giving them a bit of an admonition to lead a new life.
I know all about that Engstrand. The ruffians threw you down the stairs. You've told me of that affair already. Your injury is a badge of honor.
I take no pride in it, Your Reverence. But what I wanted to say was that when she came and confessed all to me with weeping and gnashing of the teeth, I could tell Your Reverence I was sore at the heart to hear it.
Were you indeed, Engstrand? Well, go on.
So I said to her, the American, he's sailing about on the boundless sea. And as for you, Joanna, I said, you've committed a grievous sin, and you're a fallen creature. But Jacob Engstrand, I said, he's got 2 legs to stand upon, he has. You see, Your Reverence, I was speaking figurative like.
Yes, I understand quite well. Go on.
Well, that was how I raised her up and made an honest woman of her. So folks shouldn't get to know how she'd gone astray with foreigners.
In all that you acted very well. Only I cannot approve of your stooping to take money.
Money? I? Not a farthing.
But
Oh, wait a minute. Now I recollect. Joanna did have a trifle of money, but I would have nothing to do with that. No, I said, that's mammon. That's the wages of sin. This dirty gold, or notes or whatever it was, will just flint that back of the American's face, I said. But he was already off and away over the stormy sea, Your Reverence.
was he... Look,
He was indeed, sir. So Joanna and I, we agreed that the money should go to the child's education, and so it did. And I can account for every blessed farthing of it.
why? This alters the case considerably.
That's just how it stands, Your Reverence. And I make so bold as to say, as I've been an honest father to Regina, so far as my poor strength went, for I'm a weak vessel.
Well, my good fellow.
All the same, I bear myself witness as I've brought up the child and lived kindly with poor Joanna and ruled over my own house, as the scripture has it. But it could never enter my head to go to Your Reverence and puff myself up and boast because even the likes of me had done some good in the world. No, sir. When anything of that sort happens to Jacob Engstrand, he holds his tongue about it. It doesn't happen so terribly often, I dare say. And when I do come to see Your Reverence, I find a mortal deal that's wicked and weak to talk about. For I said it before and I'll say it again. A man's conscience isn't always as clean as it might be.
Give me your hand, Jacob Engstrand.
Oh, Lord, Your Reverence.
Come, no nonsense. There we are.
And if I might humbly beg Your Reverence's pardon.
You? On the contrary, it is I who ought to beg your pardon.
Lord, no, sir.
Yes, assuredly. And I do it with all my heart. Forgive me for my misunderstanding you. I only wish I could give you some proof of my hearty regret and of my goodwill towards you.
Would Your Reverence really do that?
With the greatest of pleasure.
Well, then here's your very chance. With a bit of money I've saved here, I was thinking I might set up a sailor's home down in the town.
You?
Yes, it might be sort of a orphanage, too, in a manner of speaking. There are many temptations for seafaring folk when they come ashore. But in this home of mine, a man might feel like he was under a father's watchful eye, I was thinking.
What do you say to this, Mrs. Alving?
It isn't much I've got to start with. Lord help me. But if I could only find a helping hand, why?
Yes, we will look into the matter more closely. I entirely approve of your plan. But now, go before me. and make everything ready, and get the candles lit, so as to give the place an air of festivity. And then we will pass an edifying hour together, my good fellow, for now I quite believe you. You are in the right frame of mind.
Yes, I trust I am. So I'll say goodbye to you, ma'am, and thank you kindly, and take good care of Regina for me. Poor Joanna's child. Well, it's a strange thing now, but it's just like as if she'd grown into the very apple of my eye. It is indeed.
Well, what do you say of that man now, Mrs. Alving? That was a very different account of matters, was it not?
Yes, it certainly was.
It only shows how excessively careful one ought to be in judging one's fellow creatures. But what a heartfelt joy it is to ascertain that one has been mistaken. Don't you think so?
I think you are, and will always be, a great baby, Manders.
Aye.
And I say that I have half a mind to put my arms round your neck and kiss you.
No. God bless me. What an idea.
Oh, you need to be afraid of me.
You have sometimes such an exaggerated way of expressing yourself. Now, let me just collect all the documents and put them in my bag. There, that's all right. And now, goodbye for the present. Keep your eyes open when Oswald comes back. I shall look in again later.
Oswald, are you still at table?
I'm only finishing my cigar.
I thought you had gone for a little walk.
This weather? Wasn't that Pastor Manders that went out just now?
Yes, he went down to the orphanage. Dear Oswald, you should be careful with that liquor. It is strong.
It keeps out the damp.
Wouldn't you rather come in here to me?
I ain't smoking there.
I know quite well you may smoke cigars.
Oh, all right then. I'll come in. Just a tiny drop more first. There. Where's the pastor gone to?
I've just told you. He went down to the orphanage.
Oh, yes. So you did.
You shouldn't sit so long at table, Oswald.
Oh, but I find it so pleasant, Mother. Just think what it is for me to come home and sit at Mother's own table in my mother's dining room, eat Mother's beautiful meals.
My dear, dear boy.
What else can I do with myself here? Can't sit to work on anything.
Why can't you?
Such weather as this, without a single ray of sunshine the whole day. To not to be able to work.
Perhaps it was not quite wise of you to come home.
Yes, Mother, I had to.
You know, I would 10 times rather forgo the joy of having you here than let you...
Now, just tell me, Mother, does it really make you so very happy to have me at home again?
Does it make me happy?
I should have thought it must be pretty much the same to you, whether I existed or not.
Have you the heart to say that to your mother, Oswald?
But you've got on very well without me all this time.
Yes. I have got on without you, that is true.
Mother, may I sit on the sofa beside you?
Yes, do, my dear boy.
There's something I must tell you, Mother.
Well?
I can't go on hiding it any longer.
Hiding what? What is it?
I could never bring myself to write to you about it. And since I've come home...
Oswald, what is the matter?
Both yesterday and today I've tried to put the thoughts away from me, to cast them off, but it's no use.
And now you must tell me everything, Oswald.
Sit still, and then I will try to tell you. I complained of my fatigue after my journey.
Well, what then?
But it isn't that is the matter with me. Not any ordinary fatigue.
You're not ill, Oswald.
Sit still, Mother. Do take it quietly. I'm not downright ill either, not what is commonly called ill. Mother, my mind is broken down, ruined. I shall never be able to work again.
Oswald, look at me. No, no, it's not true.
Never to be able to work again. Never. Never. I live in death. Mother, can you imagine anything so horrible?
Oh boy, how has this horrible thing come upon you?
That's just what I cannot possibly grasp or understand. I've never led an intemperate life, never in any respect. You mustn't believe me of that, Mother. I've never done that.
I'm sure you haven't, Oswald.
Yet this has come upon me just the same. With this awful misfortune.
But it will pass over, my dear blessed boy. It's nothing but overwork. Trust me, I am right.
I thought so too, at first, but it isn't so.
Well, tell me everything, from beginning to end.
Yes, I will.
When did you notice it first?
Soon after I had been home last time and had got back to Paris again. I began to feel the most violent pains in my head, chiefly in the back of my head. It was as though a tight iron ring was being screwed round my neck and upwards. I thought it was nothing but the ordinary headaches that had so often plagued me when I was growing up.
Yes, yes.
But it wasn't that. I soon found that out. I couldn't work anymore. I wanted to begin working on a new painting, but my powers seemed to fail me. All my strength was drained. I could form no definite images. Everything swam before me, whirling round and round. Oh, it was an awful state. At last I sent for a doctor. And from him, I learned the truth.
What do you mean?
He was supposedly one of the best doctors in Paris. I told him my symptoms, and then he set to work asking me a string of questions which I thought had nothing to do with the matter. I couldn't imagine what he was after.
Well?
At last he said, "There's something worm-eaten in you from birth." He used that very word. Vermoulu.
What do you mean by that?
I didn't understand it either, and begged him to explain himself more clearly, and then the old cynic said, he said,
What did he say?
"The sins of the fathers are visited upon the children."
Sins of the fathers.
I very nearly struck him in the face.
The sins of the fathers.
Yes. What do you think of that? Of course, I assured him that such a thing was out of the question. But do you think he gave in? No, he stuck to it, and it was only when I produced your letters and translated the passages related to father.
But then?
Of course, he had to admit that he was on the wrong track. So I learned the truth. The incomprehensible truth. I'm not to have taken part with my comrades in that light-hearted, glorious life of theirs. Too much for my strength. So I had brought it upon myself.
Oswald. No, no, do not believe it.
No other explanation was possible, he said. That's the awful part of it. Incurably ruined for life by my own heedlessness. All that I meant to have done in the world. Never dare think of it again. I'm not able to think of it. If I could only live over again and undo all I have done. If it had only been something inherited, something I wasn't responsible for, but this, to have thrown away so shamefully, thoughtlessly, recklessly, one's own happiness, one's own health, everything in the world, one's future, one's very life.
No, my dear darling boy, this is impossible. Things are not so desperate as you think.
Oh, you don't know! And then, Mother, to cause you all this sorrow. Many a time I almost wished and hoped that at bottom you didn't care so much about me.
I, Oswald, my only boy, you are all I have in the world. The only thing I care about.
Yes, I see it. And I'm at home, I see it, of course. And that's what's almost the hardest part for me. But now you know the whole story, and now we won't talk anymore about it today. I didn't think of it for long together. Give me something to drink, Mother.
Drink? What do you want to drink now?
Oh, anything you like. Oh, you have some cold punch in the house.
Yes, but my dear Oswald...
Don't refuse me, Mother. To be kind now. I must have something to wash down all these gnawing thoughts. And then... Oh, it's so dark here! And this
Regina.
ceaseless rain. It may go on week after week for months together, never to get a glimpse of the sun. I can't recollect ever having seen the sunshine all the times I've been at home.
Oswald, you're thinking of going away from me.
I'm not thinking of anything. I cannot think of anything. I like thinking alone.
Regina!
Did you call, ma'am?
Yes, let us have the lamp in.
Yes, ma'am, it's already lighted.
Oswald, be frank with me.
Well, so I am, Mother. Have I not told you enough?
Regina, you may bring us a small bottle of champagne.
Very well, ma'am.
That's just what I wanted. Oh, I knew Mother wouldn't let her boy go thirsty.
My own poor darling Oswald. How could I deny you anything now?
Is that true, Mother? Do you mean it?
How? What?
That you can deny me anything?
My dear Oswald.
Shh.
Shall I open it?
No, thanks. I will do it myself.
Said you meant that I mustn't deny you.
First, let us have a glass or two.
Thanks, not for me.
Oh, won't you? Then I will.
Well?
Tell me. I thought you and Pastor Manders seemed so odd, so quiet at dinner today.
Did you notice it?
Yes. Tell me, what do you think of Regina?
What do I think?
Yes, isn't she splendid?
My dear Oswald, you don't know her as I do.
Well,
Well, Regina, unfortunately, was allowed to stay at home too long. I ought to have taken her earlier into my house.
yes, but isn't she splendid to look at, Mother?
Regina has many serious faults.
Oh, what does that matter?
But I am fond of her, nevertheless, and I am responsible for her. I wouldn't for all the world want any harm to befall her.
Mother, Regina is my only salvation.
What do you mean by that?
I cannot go on bearing all this anguish of the soul alone.
Have you not your mother to share it with you?
Yes, that's what I thought. So I came home to you. That will not do. I see now that it will not do. I cannot endure my life here.
Oswald.
I must live differently, Mother. That is why I must leave you. I will not have you looking on it.
My unhappy boy. But Oswald, well, you are so ill as this.
If it were only the illness, I should stay with you, Mother. You may be sure, for you're the best friend I have in the world.
Indeed I am, Oswald. Am I not?
But it's all this torment, the gnawing remorse. And then, great killing dread. Awful dread.
Dread? What dread? What do you mean?
Oh, you mustn't ask me anymore. I don't know. I can't describe it. What is it you want?
I want my boy to be happy. Regina, that is what I want. He shan't go on brooding over things. More champagne? A large bottle.
Mother!
Do you think we don't know how to live here at home?
Isn't she splendid to look at? How beautifully she's built and so thoroughly healthy.
Sit down, Oswald. Let us talk quietly together.
I dare say you don't know, Mother, but I owe Regina some reparation.
You?
For a bit of thoughtlessness, or whatever you like to call it. Very innocent, at any rate. When I was home last time,
Well?
she used to often ask me about Paris, and I used to tell her one thing and another. Then I remember I happened to say to her one day, "Shouldn't you like to go there yourself?"
Well?
I saw her face flush, and then she said, "Yes, I would like that very much." "Ah, well," I replied, "it might perhaps be arranged." Or something like that.
And then?
Of course, I had forgotten about it. But the day after yesterday, I happened to ask her whether she was glad I was to stay home so long.
Yes?
And then she gave me such a strange look and asked, "What's to become of my trip to Paris?"
Her trip.
And so it came out that she hadn't taken my remarks seriously, that she had been thinking of me the whole time and had set to work to learn French.
That was why.
Mother, when I saw that fresh, lovely, splendid girl standing there before me, till then I hardly noticed her. But when she stood there, so with open arms, ready to receive me,
Oswald.
then it flashed upon me that in her lay my salvation, for I saw that she was full of the joy of life.
The joy of life. Can there be salvation in that?
I'm sorry. It's been so long, I had to go to the cellar.
And now, fetch another glass.
There is Mrs. Alving's glass, Mr. Alving.
Yes, but fetch one for yourself, Regina. Why do you wait?
Is it Mrs. Alving's wish?
Fetch the glass, Regina.
Have you noticed how she walks? So firmly and lightly.
This can never be, Oswald.
It's a settled thing. Can you see that? It's no use saying anything against it. Sit down, Regina.
Sit down. Oswald, what were you saying about the joy of life?
Ah, the joy of life, Mother. That's a thing you don't know much about in these parts. I have never felt it here.
Not when you are with me.
Not when I'm at home. But you don't understand that.
Yes. I think I almost understand it now.
And then, the joy of work. They are essentially the same thing. But that, too, you know nothing about.
Perhaps you're right. Tell me more about it, Oswald.
I only mean that people here are brought up to believe that work is a curse and a punishment for sin, and that life is something miserable, that something that would be best to be done with. The sooner, the better.
Vale of tears. Yes. We certainly do our best to make it one.
But in the great world, people don't hear such things. There, nobody really believes such doctrines any longer. There, you feel positive bliss and ecstasy merely to draw the breath of life. Mother, have you noticed that everything I painted has turned upon the joy of life? Always a upon the joy of life. Light and sunshine and glorious air, and faces radiant with happiness. That is precisely why I'm afraid of remaining at home with you.
Afraid? What are you afraid of here with me?
I'm afraid least all my instincts should be warped into ugliness.
Do you think that is what would happen?
I know it. You may live the same life here as there, and yet it won't be the same life.
I see.
What is it you see?
I see it now for the first time, and now I can speak.
Mother, I don't understand you.
Perhaps I ought to go.
No, stay here. Now I can speak. Now, my boy, you shall know the whole truth, and then you can choose. Oswald, Regina.
Shh, Pastor.
There. We have had a most edifying time down there.
So have we.
We must stand by Engstrand and his sailors home. Regina must go to him and help him.
No, thank you, sir.
What? You here? And with a glass in your hand?
Pardon.
Regina is going with me, Pastor Manders.
Going with you?
Yes, as my wife, if she wishes it.
But, merciful God.
This isn't my doing, sir.
Or she'll stay here if I stay.
Here.
I am thunderstruck at your conduct, Mrs. Alving.
Do neither one thing nor the other. For now I can speak out plainly.
You will surely not do that. No, no, no.
I can and I will. And no ideals shall suffer after all.
Mother, what is it you're hiding from me?
Man, listen. Don't you hear the shouting from outside?
What's going on? What are those lights in the distance?
The orphanage is on fire!
On fire?
On fire? Impossible. I've just come from there.
Where's my hat? Oh, never mind it. Father's orphanage.
My shawl, Regina. The whole place is in a blaze.
Terrible! Mrs. Alving, it is a judgment upon this house of lawlessness.
Yes, of course. Come, Regina.
And we left it uninsured.
The whole thing burnt to the ground.
Basement is still burning.
Why hasn't Oswald come back? There's nothing to be saved.
Should you like me to bring his hat to him?
Has he not even got his hat on?
No, there it hangs.
Let it be. He must come up now. I shall go and look for him myself.
Is Mrs. Alving not here?
She's just gone down to the garden.
This is the most terrible night I have ever went through.
Yes. Isn't it a dreadful misfortune, sir?
Oh, don't talk about it. I can hardly bear to think of it.
How can it have happened?
Don't ask me, Miss Engstrand. How should I know? Do you too? Is it not enough that your father...
What about him?
Oh, he has driven me to distraction.
Your Reverence.
Are you after me too?
Yes, strike me dead, but I must. Oh Lord, what am I saying? But this is a terrible, ugly business, Your Reverence.
Alas, alas.
What's the matter?
Why, it all came of this prayer meeting, you see. Now we've got him, my girl. And to think it should be my doing, that such a thing should be his Reverence's doing.
I assure you, Engstrand.
There wasn't another soul except your Reverence as ever laid a finger on the candles down there.
Yes, so you keep saying. But I certainly cannot recollect I ever having had a candle in my hand.
And I saw as clear as daylight how your Reverence took the candle and snuffed it with your fingers, and threw away the wick right down among the shavings.
Or you stood and looked on.
Yes, I saw it as plain as a pikestaff, I did.
It's quite beyond my comprehension. Besides, it has never been my habit to extinguish candles with my fingers.
And terrible risky it looked, too, that it did. But is there such a deal of harm done after all, your reverence?
No, don't ask me that.
And your reverence hadn't insured it either.
No. I have told you so.
Not insured. And then to go straight away down and set light to the whole thing. Lord, what a misfortune.
Yes, Engstrand, you may well say that.
And to think that such a thing should happen to a benevolent institution that was to have been a blessing both to town and country. The newspapers won't be handling your reverence very gently, I expect.
No, that is just what I am thinking of. That is almost the worst of the whole matter. All the malignant attacks and imputations. Oh, it makes me shudder just to think of it.
He cannot be persuaded to leave the fire.
Oh, there you are, Mrs. Alving.
So, you have escaped your inaugural address, Pastor Manders.
Oh, I should so gladly.
It is all for the best. That orphanage would have done no one any good.
Do you think not?
Do you think it would?
It is a terrible misfortune all the same.
Let us speak of it plainly as a matter of business. Are you waiting for the pastor, Engstrand?
That's just what I'm doing, ma'am.
Then sit down, meanwhile.
Thank you, ma'am. Though I'd rather stand.
I suppose you're leaving by the steamer?
Yes, it undocks in an hour.
Then be so good as to take all the papers with you. I won't hear another word about this affair. I have other things to think about.
Mrs. Alving.
Later I shall send you a power of attorney to settle everything as you please.
That I will very readily undertake. The original destination of the endowment must now be completely changed. Alas.
Of course it must.
I think, first of all, I shall arrange that the Solvik property shall pass to the parish. The land is by no means without value. It can always be turned to account for some purpose or other. And the interest of the money in the bank I could, perhaps, best apply for the benefit of some undertaking of acknowledged value to the town.
Do just as you please. The whole matter is now of complete indifference to me.
You ever thought of the sailor's home, your reverence?
Upon my word, that is not a bad suggestion. That must be considered.
Oh, devil take considering. Oh, forgive me.
And unfortunately, I cannot tell how long I shall be able to retain control of these things. Whether public opinion may not compel me to retire, it entirely depends upon the result of the official inquiry into the fire.
What are you talking about?
And the result can by no means be foretold.
Aye, but it can, though. For here stands old Jacob Engstrand.
Well, but...
And Jacob Engstrand isn't the man to desert a noble benefactor in the hour of need, as the saying goes.
Yes. Oh, my good fellow, how?
Jacob Engstrand may be likened to a sort of a guardian angel, as you might say, your reverence.
No, I really cannot accept that.
Oh, that'll be the way of it all the same. I know of a man who has taken others' sins upon himself before now.
Jacob! Yours is a rare nature. Well, you shall be helped with your sailor's home. That you may rely upon. And now let us set out. We two will go together.
You come along too, my girl. You shall live as snug as the yolk in an egg.
See.
Goodbye, Mrs. Alving. And may the spirit of law and order soon descend upon this house.
Bye, Pastor Manders.
Goodbye, my child. And if any trouble should come to you, you know where Jacob Engstrand is to be found. Little Harbor Street. And the refuge for wandering mariners shall be called Chamberlain Alving's home. And if I am allowed to carry on that house in my own way, I make so bold as to promise that it shall be worthy of the Chamberlain's memory.
Come along, my dear Engstrand. Goodbye. Goodbye.
What house was he talking about?
A kind of home that he and Pastor Manders want to set up.
It will burn down like the other.
Yes, you think so?
Everything will burn. All that recalls father's memory is doomed. Here I am too. Burned down.
You oughtn't to have remained so long down there, my poor boy.
I almost think you're right.
Let me dry your face, Oswald.
Thank you.
You are quite wet.
Thank you, Mother.
Are you not tired, Oswald? Should you like to sleep?
No. Not to sleep. I never sleep. I only pretend to. It will come soon enough.
Yes. You really are ill, my blessed boy.
Is Mr. Alving ill?
Shut all the doors! This chilling dread that haunts me.
Close the doors, Regina. There now. I'm going to sit beside you.
Yes, do. And Regina shall stay here too. Regina shall always be with me. You will come to my rescue, won't you?
I don't understand.
To your rescue.
Yes, when the need comes.
Oswald, have you not your mother to come to your rescue?
You? No, Mother. You'll never bring me to salvation. You. Though after all, who ought to do it if not you? Why don't you speak to me as a friend, Regina? Why don't you call me Oswald?
I don't think Mrs. Alving would like that.
You may do so. And meanwhile, come, sit over here beside us. And now, my poor suffering boy, I am going to take the burden off your mind.
You, Mother?
All the gnawing remorse and self-reproach you speak of.
You think you can do that?
Yes, now I can, Oswald. A little while ago you spoke of the joy of life. It seemed to cast a new light over everything that has happened in my life.
I don't understand you.
You ought to have known your father when he was a young lieutenant. He was brimming over with the joy of life.
Yes, I know he was.
It was like a sunny morning just to look at him, and what exuberant strength and vitality there was within him.
Well,
Then child of joy as he was, for he was like a child in those days. He had to live at home here in a little town that had no joys to offer him, only dissipations. He had no purpose in life, only an official position. He had no work into which he would throw himself, heart and soul, only business. He had not a single friend that could realize what the joy of life meant, only loungers and drinking companions.
Mother!
And so, the inevitable happened.
The inevitable.
You told me yourself this evening what would become of you if you stayed at home.
Do you mean to say that father?
Your poor father found no outlet for the overpowering joy of life that was in him. And I brought no sunshine into his home.
Not even you.
It taught me a great deal about duty. I went on obstinately believing in everything was marked out into duties, into my duties, into his duties, and I am afraid I made this home intolerable for your poor father, Oswald.
Why have you never spoken of this in writing to me?
Until now, I had never seen it in such a light that I could speak of it to you, his son.
In what light did you see it then?
I saw only this one thing. That your father was a broken man before you were born. Day after day, I dwelt on the one thought that Regina should be at home in this house, that she belonged here just as much as my own boy.
Regina!
Yes, now you know it, both of you.
Regina!
Mother was that kind of woman.
Your mother had many good qualities, Regina.
Yes, but she was one of that sort all the same. I suspected it, but... And now, if you please me, ma'am, may I be allowed to leave at once?
Do you really wish it, Regina?
Yes, indeed, I do.
Of course, you can do as you like, but...
Leave now? Your place is here.
Merci, Mr. Alving. Or now, I suppose I may say, Oswald. But I can tell you this wasn't at all what I expected.
Regina, I have not been frank with you.
No, indeed, you have not. If I had known that Oswald was ill, why... And now, too, that it can never come to anything serious between us, I really can't stay out here in the country, wearing myself, nursing sick people.
Not even one who is so near to you.
No, that I cannot. A poor girl must make the best of her young days, or she'll be left out in the cold before she knows where she is. And I, too, have the joy of life in me, Mrs. Alving.
Unfortunately, I'm afraid you have, but don't throw yourself away, Regina.
What will be, must be. If Oswald takes after his father, I take after my mother, I dare say. May I ask, ma'am, if Pastor Manders knows all of this about me?
Manders knows everything.
Well then. I better make haste and get away by the steamer. The pastor is such a nice man to deal with. And I certainly think I've as much right to a little of that money as he has. That brute of a carpenter.
You are heartily welcome to it, Regina.
I think you might have brought me up as a gentleman's daughter, ma'am. It would have suited me better. But what the hell does that matter now? I may come to drink with champagne with gentlefolks yet.
And if you ever need a home, Regina, come to me.
No, thank you, ma'am. Pastor Manders will look after me. I know. And if the worst comes to worst, I know one house where I've every right to a place.
Where's that?
Chamberlain Alving's home.
Regina, now I see it. You are going to your ruin.
Nonsense. Adieu.
She gone?
Yes.
I think it was a mistake. This.
My dear boy, has this shaken you very much?
What about father, dear?
Yes, about your unhappy father. I'm so afraid it may have been too much for you.
Why should you fear that? Of course it came upon me a great surprise, but it can make no real difference to me.
No difference? That your father was so infinitely unhappy.
Of course, I can pity him as I would anybody else, but...
Nothing more. For your own father.
Oh, father. Father. I never knew anything of father. I remember nothing about him except that once he made me sick.
That is terrible to think of. Ought not a son to love his father, whatever happens?
When a son has nothing to thank his father for, has never known him, do you really cling to that old superstition? You, who is otherwise so enlightened.
Can it be only a superstition?
Yes. Surely you can see that, mother. It's one of those notions that are current in the world, and so...
Ghosts.
Yes. You may call them ghosts.
Oswald. don't love me either.
At least I know you.
Yes, you know me, but is that all?
And of course, I know how fond you are of me, and I could be nothing but grateful to you. And you could be so useful to me now that I'm ill.
Yes, Oswald, I can, can't I? I could almost bless the illness that has brought you home to me. For I see it very plainly that you are not mine. I have to win you.
Yes. These are all just empty phrases. You must remember that I'm a sick man, Mother. I can't much be taken up with other people. I have enough to do thinking about myself.
I shall be patient and easily satisfied.
And cheerful, too, Mother.
Yes. My dear boy, you are quite right. Have I relieved you of all remorse and self-reproach now?
Yes, you have. But now who will relieve me of the dread?
The dread.
Regina could have done it.
I don't understand you. What is this about dread and Regina?
Is it very late, Mother?
It's early morning. The dawn is breaking over the mountains, and the weather is clearing, Oswald. In a little while, you shall be able to see the sun.
Glad of that. I may still have much to rejoice in and live for,
I should think so indeed.
even if I can't work.
You'll soon be able to work again, my dear boy, now that you haven't got all these gnawing and depressing thoughts to brood over any longer.
Yes, I'm glad you were able to rid me of all those ideas. And I've got over this one more thing. And we will have a little talk, Mother.
Yes, let us.
And while we talk, the sun will be rising. And you will know all. I shall not feel this dread any longer.
What is it that I am to know?
Mother, did you not say a little while ago that there was nothing in the world that you wouldn't do for me if I asked you?
Yes, indeed, I said so.
And you keep that promise, Mother.
You may rely on that, my dear and only boy. I have nothing in the world to live for but you alone.
Very well. Now you shall hear. Mother, you have a strong, steadfast mind, I know. Now, you sit quite still when you hear this.
What dreadful thing can it be?
You're not to scream out. Do you hear? Do you promise me that? We'll sit and talk about it quietly. Do you promise me, Mother?
Yes, I promise. Only speak.
Well, you must know that all this fatigue and my inability to think of work, all that is not the illness itself.
What is the illness itself?
The disease I have is my birthright. It is seated here.
No.
Don't scream. Bear this. Yes, Mother, it is seated here, waiting. It may break out at any day, at any moment.
What horror!
Quiet! Quiet. That is how it stands with me.
It is not true, Oswald. It is impossible. It cannot be so.
I had one attack down there already. It was soon over. But when I came to know the state I had been in, the dread descended upon me, raging, ravaging. And so I set off home to you as fast as I could.
And this is the dread.
Yes. It's so indescribably loathsome, you know. Oh, if it only had been any ordinary mortal disease. I'm not so afraid of death. I should like to live as long as I can.
Yes, Oswald, you must.
But this is so utterly loathsome. To become a slobbering baby again. To have to be fed. To have to... Oh, it's not to be spoken of.
Child has his mother to nurse him.
No, never that. That is just what I will not have. I can't endure to think that perhaps I should lie in that state for many years. I get old and grey. And perhaps you might die and leave me. The doctor said it wouldn't necessarily prove fatal at once. He called it a sort of softening of the brain, or something like that. I think that expression sounds so nice. It's always set me thinking of cherry-colored velvet. Something soft and delicate to stroke.
Oswald.
And now you have taken Regina from me. If I could have only had her, she would have been my salvation. I know it.
What do you mean by that, my darling boy? Is there any help in the world that I would not give you?
When I got over my attack in Paris, the doctor told me that when it comes again, and it will come again, there will be no more hope.
He was heartless enough to...
I demanded it of him. I told him I had preparations to make. And so I had. Mother, do you see this? Morphia.
Oswald, my boy.
I scraped together 12 capsules.
Give me the box, Oswald.
Not yet, Mother.
I shall never survive this.
It must be survived. Now, if I had Regina here, I should have told you how things stood with me. I begged her to do me this last service. She would have done it. I know she would.
Never.
Horror came upon me, and she saw me lying there helpless, like a little newborn baby, potent, lost, helpless, beyond all hope.
Never in the world would Regina have done this.
Regina would have done it. Regina was so splendidly light-hearted. She would soon have wearied of nursing an invalid like me.
Heaven be praised that Regina is not here.
Well then, it is you that must do this last service for me, Mother. Who should do it if not you?
I, your mother.
For that very reason.
I, who gave you life.
I never asked for life. And what sort of life have you given me? I will not have it. You shall take it back again.
Help! Help!
Do not leave me. Where are you going?
To fetch the doctor, Oswald. Let me pass.
You shall not go out. And no one shall come in.
Oswald! Oswald! My child.
Have you a mother's heart for me? And yet can see me suffer from this terrible dread.
There's a hand upon it.
Will you?
It should ever be necessary, but it will never be necessary. No. No, that is impossible.
Well, let us hope so. Let us live together as long as we can. Thank you, Mother.
I feel calm now.
Yes.
It is a dreadful fancy of yours, Oswald, nothing but a fancy. All this excitement has been too much for you, but now you shall have a long rest at home with your mother, my own blessed boy. Everything you point to you shall have, just as when you were a child. There now, the crisis is over. You see how easily it passed, and I was sure it would. Do you see, Oswald? What a lovely day you are going to have. Brilliant sunshine. Now you can really see your home.
Mother, give me the sun.
What did you say?
The sun. The sun.
What is the matter with you? What is this? Oswald? What is the matter with you? Oswald! Oswald! Look at me! Don't you know me?
Sun. The sun.
I cannot bear it. I cannot bear it, never! Where is he gone? Here. No. No. No! Yes! No! No!
Son. The sun.
Thus ends the play. Thank you so much for joining us in this polished reading of Henrik Ibsen's Ghost. It has been absolutely amazing to have you guys here, part of our audience. And I know that the actors were thrilled to be part of this project as well, and I wanted to take a second to thank them too. If you guys could just give a quick bow for everybody that's watching. As organized and choreographed as every curtain call is. In any case, we hope that you... We hope that all of you as our listeners and viewers will get the chance to check in on some of our other online projects that we'll be doing. Next up, we're actually going to be doing Man of Destiny by George Bernard Shaw, and you might see a few returning faces that were on this performance as well. And as we move forward, we're actually going to be looking to get some submissions for one-act plays, as we'll be organizing a one-act play festival later next year in early February to around the start of March. In any case, if you're interested in submitting that, please send a private message to our Facebook page, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And until then, stay safe, and we hope you're all doing well during the COVID-19 pandemic. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.